If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now and the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. Also, if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. Seems every week I get a few people telling me that they were unsubscribed without their permission. And of course, be sure to give the video a like. The white supremacists hate that. Now, that said, well, I think Christmas came a little bit early. Talk about doubling down on stupid. It was a big enough insult that the Democrats decided they were going to dust old Jim Crow Joe out of mothballs and put him on the ticket. I mean, let's face it, with the Democratic Party in the shape it's in now, they need all the personality they can get. But even though Kamala Harris had crashed and burned, she went from being a rising star to being a falling star overnight because the black grassroots mobilized against her. Well, it just goes to show the Democrats are fresh out of ideas. But it also shows that now that they realize that this black voter blockade is real, that the black grassroots have gotten the folks on code and they're realizing, nah, you ain't getting the black vote for nothing. They're having to just pull out all the stops. White supremacy has no problem putting a black person on the bottom of the ticket or the top of the ticket, long as this black person, or biracial rather, is going to toe the line and carry water for white supremacy. And that's what's going on now. To take the author of the '94 crime bill and a biracial Asian American who has proudly spent her entire adult life using the law, weaponizing the law against black people, smiling and laughing as she does so. Take a look at my classic video, The Rise and Fall of Kamala Harris. You can see her laughing about locking black people up, especially even homeless black women. She laughs about it. Every time she talks about locking up black people, she starts laughing and giggling and can't contain herself. Yeah, but now that she's no longer in the cozy confines of California, with the San Francisco political machine to back her up, now she's got to come out here among the rest of the black folks where she doesn't have down low Willie Brown to stick up for her. Now all of a sudden she's singing a different tune, very different than she was when she was a DA and then Attorney General of the state. But to put these two on a ticket together, this is the white Democrat establishment deciding to spit in black people's faces and make it clear, yeah, we know we're going down, but this is how we're going down. We're going to die on this hill. Our last act as a political entity is going to be to show you niggers that we're determined to keep you oppressed no matter what. Yeah, even if we can't hold you in chains, we're going to make it clear that we would very much wish that we could. That's what this ticket represents. This is not a campaign ticket. This is a full frontal assault against black people in this country, against our interests, against our tangibles. This is a slap in the face to the black grassroots and the black agenda that we represent. That's what this ticket is about. This is about, even if we can't pull this off, we're doing this just to make a statement. Okay, well, they're making a statement, not a very smart one, but okay, they made a statement. Nobody ever said it had to be an intelligent one. Biden and Kamala Harris. So you have a two-time loser for the presidency, Joe Biden, an idiot who couldn't even make it past the primaries 2 times, and he's partnered up with a woman who couldn't make it past the first time. Oh yeah, this is like something from an SNL skit. This is like something from an episode of Saturday Night Live, but not a very good episode. You got Kamala. This woman got knocked out the box in the primary first try. I mean, she was one of the first people to throw in the towel. And now she's on the ticket because she's going to appeal to who? Come on, this woman had to drop out in December of last year, 4 months before the California primary took place. I mean, she already knew she wasn't going to get anything, so she didn't even bother to hang around for the California primary. What the hell does that tell you? What the heck? What kind of weight is she going to be pushing? She can't carry no doggone weight, and that's supposed to be the entire reason why you choose a running mate. Running mate's supposed to help to shore you up in some places. Barack Obama chose Joe Biden because Joe Biden's a white guy from the Rust Belt. It certainly didn't hurt. It assured the casual racist read white moderates that, don't worry, there's going to be a white man keeping an eye on this biracial just to make sure that his Negro side doesn't get unruly. They needn't have worried, by the way. But Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. This is Joe Biden, by the way, this goofball, he parachuted into the race late. Hey, everybody, remember me? Yes, we do, Joe, and not fondly. And you know that things are messed up when Rupert Murdoch's little propaganda mill, part of his little propaganda empire, the Wall Street Journal, they posted an article day before yesterday entitled Kamala Harris Won't Satisfy Progressives. Now, when you got the guys on the right who already are looking at this Democratic ticket and going, you know what, you picked the wrong ones. You bet you guys have completely and thoroughly misread the political environment, the mood of the people. You have completely and thoroughly misread them. And you're now chasing after phantoms. This is the Democratic white establishment who is trying to reassert control. The idea is if they just decide, well, we're going to stick to our guns on this and you guys are just stuck with it, and well, they'll calm down when they realize we're not budging, we're not changing anything. That's the working theory here. What they're hoping is that the black grassroots will run out of patience before they run out of shills and bootlicks and unreconstructed Confederates like Joe Biden and these hostile immigrants like Kamala Harris to throw at us. That's what the idea is, but it won't work at all. As the Wall Street Journal article wrote, you had this one individual, Errol Lewis, supposed to be some sort of political expert, though you couldn't tell by looking. He said that Joe Biden's top priority in selecting a running mate will be to choose somebody who can help unite and energize the sprawling, restless Democratic coalition. Man, that's immigrant talk. That's supposed to be evocative of the Statue of Liberty. Give us your poor, your tired, your huddled masses, blah, blah, blah. At a time when demands for racial justice and inclusion are surging. Notice he doesn't say black justice. He's sitting here, we're going to say racial, we're going to go ahead and generalize it. Harris would be a camera-ready voice from the black base of the party. Kamala Harris describes herself as being Asian whenever she's not in front of black folks. Whenever she's in front of black folks, she's very sparing with calling herself black. She'll talk about her relatives and such. Oh, I got people from Jamaica and they love to smoke weed. She'll do that, but as far as describing herself as a black person, she practically never does it. And the few times she does, whenever she's in front of black folks, and she'll say it once to get it out of the way and run away from it. But this is what the Democrat experts are telling themselves, all kinds of lies and happy talk. But the Wall Street Journal, they got it right. Errol Lewis's erroneous analyses, it assumes that being black is all you need for Black Lives Matter. When they say Black Lives Matter, they're talking about the black grassroots. They ain't talking about that front organization for the LGBT movement. They're talking about us. And you know what? They're right. Being black, that ain't going to move no weight. And why? As the Wall Street Journal wrote, BLM, what they actually mean is B1, learned from Barack Obama that race didn't equate to policy. As president, he failed to act meaningfully against police brutality. This is Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal writing this. This is not the black media. This is not being put in this was not coming from a video essay by Professor Truth. This is something that's coming from the white right. They're the ones writing this. They're the ones saying that the black grassroots specifically linked Barack Obama to their refusal to show up to vote. Specifically, they're sitting here saying it by name. They learned from Barack Obama that just because you put a person of color in there, that's not going to equate to policy. And look what they're saying. It's the policy that matters. This is not about, well, I want to feel represented. I want to feel included. To hell with that. I want some policies, tangibles. And then they go on to write that he failed to act meaningfully against police brutality. So what does that tell you? What that tells you is even Rupert Murdoch's little sewer, they've heard the kind of things that we've been saying here. Barack Obama failed to do anything. Forget about failed. He didn't fail. To fail means you tried. He did not try. He was on the side of white supremacy. He was on the side of propping up the thugs with badges. That's what he did. He defended police murdering black people. That's what he did. He defended that. And because he did, now what happened was his legacy was broken when Hillary was denied the presidency. And now what's going to happen is a complete and thorough repudiation of the political party altogether. Why? Because Barack Obama took the side of the bad guys. And the Democratic Party has decided that, okay, well, we couldn't get this Negro over here, this biracial, to sell you on sitting on your hands. So now we're going to see if we can just spit in your faces and see if that demoralizes you. They're wrong. But the white right is admitting, yeah, we see exactly what the issue is. And if the white right sees it, you know damn well that the left arm of white supremacy sees it. But the article closes pretty much by saying Mr. Biden probably won't enjoy much of a boost from a running mate primarily chosen to appeal to the older black voters who would have turned out for him anyway. He has certainly alienated progressives. And when he says progressives, they ain't talking about the blue-haired, LGBT activists or the feminists or the environmentalist zealots or what have you. They're talking specifically about the black grassroots. Well, they're right on one point. Black folks were alienated a long time ago by the Democratic Party. It didn't just start with Biden. But here they list it. This is the white right saying this. They're saying that, yeah, we get the entire idea behind Kamala Harris is you think that she's going to galvanize a certain segment of the black vote. Notice that they don't even say black men. They make sure black men never get mentioned in any of this stuff. 50% of the black population never gets brought up in the political math. You want to know why that is? Because as far as they're concerned, they understand the direction the black men have already gone in. At this point, this is just a last-ditch rearguard effort to see if they can hold on to the black women who are still buying into the con game. Because if black women finally decide that they're going to cut loose as a group, right now we're nearing a critical mass. It could go either way, and they're desperate. They're pulling out all the stops. Because they know what will happen. You're going to have fully the entire black population of the United States who are on black empowerment and who have made it very clear this political process is going to be destabilized. And that's going to be black people speaking in one irresistible voice. This is going to be the single greatest threat that white supremacy has seen in 150 years. But this is the Wall Street Journal saying that the only people who Kamala Harris appeals to are older black voters. Now, who was saying that before them? We've been saying the same freaking thing. Black media has been telling you this. This is all about living vicariously through black people that you see on television. That's what's been going on with the black baby boomers for the longest time. I would love to say that the problem is that they were raised on television, but the problem happened to be that there was a certain, just a weakness of character. Not all black baby boomers to a man or a woman, but the vast, vast, vast majority, fully 95% of them. And I said it. But 95% of black baby boomers, total lack of character. And what that means is they were willing to settle for gestures and tokens and such. To them, that was good enough. They have a taste for abuse from white supremacy. And so Joe Biden, he's not offering anything because he knows that with the older black set, he doesn't have to. Why would any black person sit there and think to themselves, even if you did like Barack Obama, how the hell does anything Barack Obama did, even if he was a good president for us, and he wasn't, he was the most disastrous president of our lifetimes. He emboldened white supremacy more than any blatant racist could. Look at how things have been under Trump and look how things were under Obama. The white supremacists, they see that they're facing maximum resistance precisely because an open racist in the White House makes it where people are not going to be sitting on their hands waiting to see what the president does. You already know you can't expect anything from that white supremacist with the orange tan. So folks are taking to the streets. That's a good thing. What it means is they're fighting the white supremacists instead of waiting to see if Eric Holder or Loretta Lynch or some other empty suit gives them some press release and says, well, ain't nothing we can do. But Joe Biden, his entire cynical strategy is, I'm not going to offer black people anything. We got to find a way to get black people to accept that. I know, we'll go ahead and get this Asian woman who keeps claiming to be black. We'll get her to get out there and say that I'm speaking for black people and you can't deny what I'm saying and you got to listen to me because I am the official spokesperson for all black people. You couldn't even get any black votes. That doesn't matter. They're putting me on the ticket and that's all that matters. That's the con game that's going on. The issue that's going on, the political and electoral destabilization that the Democrats have been suffering, this is because of younger black voters. When I say younger, I mean 50 and under. Not the baby boomer set. And the white media is excruciatingly aware of that, as are both the political parties. NPR, which is government radio, they did a piece just today about Kamala, Joe, and the fissures in the base, except as you can see from the illustration, and as you'll also see in the piece, the base means black people. They say black throughout the piece. See, when you look at the headline, they don't say black. They just say fissures in the base. But then when you read the article, oh, they're talking about black people. See how the little game that they play? And they do the reverse. If they mention black people in the headline, when you read the piece, it suddenly becomes people of color, black, brown, minorities, inner city, disadvantaged, blah, 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 blah. But with this piece, they admit, yeah, we know that there's a problem. We're admitting it. And yes, with young black voters. The interviewer in boldface type, they're the ones asking the questions, and in lowercase, in the plain type, you have the answers being given by a woman named Cheryl Lade, or Laird. She's apparently a political scientist at Bowdoin College. She's black, so she's going to be their Negro whisperer, but what she says is only palatable to white leftists because she never mentions tangibles or punishing the police. So this is made to be very user-friendly and digestible to the casual racist, read white moderate, or the white leftist. It's meant to be something that's not going to give them any heartburn. But the interviewer says there seems to be this generational divide among black Democrats. Gee, really? Because I thought the Democrats had it all under control. Or at the very least, they're black flunkies like Negro Jim Clyburn. The Congressional Black Talkers, or rather the Congressional Immigrant Caucus, I thought they had the blacks under control, but they don't. And they're admitting the problem here is a generational problem. This is not just black folks in general. This happens to be the younger black set. This is not an issue of income or gender. This happens to be an issue of age. A newer black generation has come of age now, and they're looking to go and things are going to have to change. And this is presenting an enormous problem for the Democrats. Now, this generational divide, you got young black people who were, as the interviewer erroneously puts it, begging their boomer and Gen X parents to move away from Biden and pick more candidates like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. Man, that's crazy talk. This is just to let you know, this is all about trying to dictate to black people what we think. Well, you see, black people, they weren't trying to move away. These younger black people, they're not soured on the Democratic Party. What they wanted was they wanted their parents to move toward Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, toward another Democrat. See, that's a user-friendly message. Well, the problem here is the Democrat establishment. It's the Democrat establishment, you see. It's not the failing of the party in general. It's not that the party was just a can of worms, just a control mechanism to keep black people on a treadmill and doing nothing about their oppression. The problem happened to be that, well, you're just picking the wrong Democrat. It's not just dumping the party altogether. That you see what they're doing here, even when they pretend as if, oh, we're speaking about what the young black people are saying. It's just to lead you back to the same old trap. Now, what this Laird woman says is, at certain points, especially during the Obama years, we saw turnout at levels we hadn't really seen before. Then she goes on to add, but that still was not comparable to what we saw of older voters. Really? So Biden is going to have a challenge with the mobilization of those young voters on his behalf. It's going to be an issue of getting those who are not as motivated to vote for him to turn out at all. Well, at least out of all that gibberish, out of that whole word salad, she at least managed to say something that was halfway true. Yeah. Those younger voters who are not motivated to vote for him, I can tell you now, it's not going to be a challenge to get them to turn out. They're not going to turn out at all. That's just the plain facts. They're going to support Joe Biden the same way that he supported those young black voters. Not at all. That's what Joe Biden could look forward to. It's like being tied to the train tracks and you see this locomotive coming at you. Sure, the dang thing's moving slow, but you better believe it ain't going to stop before it runs you over. Biden's going to have a challenge. Nah, this ain't a challenge. A challenge would be climbing Mount Everest. This is like bailing out the Pacific Ocean with a teaspoon. That ain't a challenge. It's impossible. But that's not to say that there's not a confession that gets made, because at the end of the article, this Laird woman, she says what the true point is, and in the process, she shows what the Democrats' entire strategy is. The interviewer asked this Laird character how Biden's choice for vice president might influence black voter turnout. Now, keep in mind, this is on the 13th. This was today, for God's sake. Everybody already knows what Biden's strategy is. He's been saying for a couple of months now that he was planning to pick a woman of color, and with Kamala Harris, that's all he got. And of course, everybody understands the entire point is to galvanize the black female vote. They're asking rhetorical questions. This is a softball question. Why? Because this is the rah, rah, rah cheerleading part where we try to see if we can psychologically masturbate black female voters, see if we can find a way to schmooze them, see if we can find a way to stroke their egos. That's all this question was about. There's nothing probative about it. There's no information that it gives. Nobody looks and goes, oh, yeah, right. Tell us what's going on with Biden's VP pick. What does it mean? Everybody knows exactly what this is about. That's what this article was about. That's part of the reason why you see the illustration that you see. You got this younger black female being represented, reaching out to an older one. So obviously, this happens to be a puff piece aimed primarily at black women. And that's what Laird says. Black women are the Democratic Party. You get that? This woman is stupid. Black women are the Democratic Party. You take a look at Democratic cities like Ferguson, Chicago, Atlanta, D.C., New York. Tell me what the condition of black women is in those cities. Do black women run things? Do you see black women controlling things? You see black women who call the shots and say, if we don't like a law, if we don't like a particular person on the ballot, that person better be removed or else. Do you see black women actually running the Democratic Party? All I see are nothing but thoughts, strippers, and LGBT refugees who run these towns. And I also see the police killing black people, especially black women, with complete impunity. And you don't see any of these black tools doing anything about it. You don't see the Democratic Party actually following what black women say. No reparations, no tangibles, no punishment of the police. These city councils that you see in these so-called Democratic enclaves, these city councils are not filled with black women. The local jails are. And Kamala Harris did her level best to fill them when she was prosecutor in Alameda County and later on in San Francisco County and then California State Attorney General. You see, you can only claim to be the Democratic Party if you're the one who controls it, if you're the one who directs its policy. If you look at who the hierarchy of leadership is and you see people who look like you, that means, yeah, okay, now you can say that you are the Democratic Party because you own it, you control it, and it operates in your interests. Black women do not own the Democratic Party. They are not the Democratic Party hierarchy or policymakers. And it damn sure doesn't operate in their interest. So how can you lie and say that black women are the Democratic Party? That would be like saying that black women are the white Aryan resistance or saying that black women are the KKK. But this is what this Laird woman's been meant to do. This was all a softball set up for her to do this little bit of rah, rah, rah ad placement for the DNC. Now, while it's obvious that this woman is a cheerleader for the Democrats, what she says next is a confession of what we've been telling you the Democrats' 2020 strategy has been. She says that Biden's VP pick, which everyone already knew was going to be Kamala Harris, could be even more energizing for black women who are already very engaged. Then she says black women don't just vote by themselves. That one black woman can mobilize 10 other people to vote. Now, notice how, just like the white media and white liberals, she transitions in the same sentence from saying black women to saying just people in general. That one black woman can mobilize 10 other people. She doesn't say blacks. She doesn't say black people. She doesn't even say black women. She just says that one black woman can mobilize 10 other people to vote. This all reads like this layered woman is attempting to give a pitch for why, well, you need me to be your Negro whisperer and why black people are so important to the DNC. And I'm going to sell you on the idea that black voters are important to the Democrats. If anything, shouldn't this be white Democrats saying all this? If black women really are the end all and be all for the Democratic Party, then why don't you have some white folks out there saying, you know what, black women are the Democratic Party? You ain't going to have them saying that. And the reason why is you get some white folks out there saying that, you're going to have these black women who look at them and say, now, what are we going to get? See, you put a black person out there and there's already the understanding that this black person, this black woman who's cheerleading for the Democrats, she has no power. She has no stroke. She has no influence. She can't offer you anything. She doesn't have the power to give you anything. So there's no point in even asking her, especially in the current political climate among black folks. So that's the reason why you don't want to put a white person out there, because that white person, the black folks are going to put the arm on them and say, hey, you need to be stepping up with some tangibles. So we better put a black person out there so we can neutralize those demands, because we know that they won't expect anything from this black shill. And that's what this layered character is about. And then she decides that she's going to lay on what is clearly insincere praise extra thick. She says the black women are revered in the community. And the matriarchal positioning of black women in the black community, matriarchal positioning, family, that's white feminist talk right there. That's Gloria Steinem talk. By the way, she came out of mothballs and she's out there trying to figure out how if she can get her mojo back like she had in the 70s. I mean, they're pulling out all the stops. I mean, they're going through all kinds of back breaking, twisting themselves into pretzels and knots. Oh, by the way, at no point in this article does this layered woman ever say the word we. She's a black woman, but she talks as if she's not. She talks as if she's some white liberal. See, Negro whisperers like this are consultants. So when they talk about the black community, they see us through the lens of the white left, which is who they aspire to be. So they talk about us in the third person, them Negroes over there. And since they're consultants, what they're trying to prove is their alleged power of black clairvoyance. Why, I have ESP when it comes to these Negroes. And that's why you should give me a job consulting for you. And we see this across the board with these Negroes. Joy Reid only got a daily gig from MSNBC because of the upcoming election. But notice that MSNBC, they're not moving any other black folks into that programming slate. Oh no, as far as they're concerned, Joy Reid's pretty much all the Negroes we can stand on a daily basis. Now, this layered woman, she just gave a confession that without ever saying what black women are going to get. As far as she's concerned, well, if you put a black woman on the ticket, or at least a woman claiming to be black in the case of Kamala Harris, that's all you need to do. Black women will be more energized if you just do that. She doesn't talk about punishing the police. She doesn't talk about tangibles. She doesn't talk about what black women are going to get. Why the hell would you get energized and enthused about voting when you're not going to get a damn thing? Kamala Harris gets something. What do you get? But that's what this layered woman says. It's all about figuring out how to trick black women to the polls. That's what the con game here is. Can we trick them to the polls? Make sure you don't offer them anything. Oh, we need them to turn out. That's what Laird says. But at the end of the day, they still turn out. They still do the activism. Well, while she does make a point that there's a certain absurdity to that, sure. What she doesn't say is the Democrats need to be stepping up with some tangibles. Instead, it's a matter of, well, put a black woman on the ticket so that they can see themselves being represented, family. That's the whole lesson of Barack Obama. You can have a Negro in there who's dark as my shoe. If this guy is nothing more than a tool of white supremacy, you're still not being represented. But this is what this layered woman says. This is the garbage that she puts out there. Find some way to get you to think that as long as there's someone claiming to be black on the ticket, you get representation. Isn't that all that matters? This is media spin. See, if you're talking about a TV show or if you're talking about a movie, that's the kind of talk that I expect from these white entertainment types who are talking about you need to have more black people represented on, TV, on Friends. How come there's no black people on Friends? Representation. When it comes to politics, what matters is obedience. That's the coin of the realm when it comes to an election. What matters is obedience. You're going to do what I say. I don't give a damn who's president, long as he does what I tell him to do. This so-called black expert Laird, by the way, she never mentions black men in her entire screed. At no point does she mention black men. She talks about how black voter turnout is lower than it's been and how every black vote counts, but she deliberately leaves out 50% of the black electorate. What does that tell you? You're sitting here talking about a generational schism among black voters, among young black voters. But then when it comes time to get specific, they just say black women and they leave it at that. And it matters that this is an NPR, that's government broadcasting. So at all levels, you got the government and both the major parties behind the idea that we need to find a way to ingratiate ourselves with black females. Well, you could try offering black women tangibles. No, we ain't going to do that. No tangibles. Nothing that they can actually control. Nothing that they can own. No tangibles. None at all. No, can we offer them something short of tangibles? Like what? How about we take this Asian woman who spent most of her life claiming to be black because she figured black people are gullible and would fall for it. And she's been locking up black people for 30 years. And why don't we get you to vote for her if she claims to be black? Why don't you go ahead and do that? Now, what kind of messed up game is that? Well, that's exactly the messed up game that black people have been playing until the last few years. That's what it is. And this layered woman leaving black men out of the conversation, that's meant to be a dog whistle, which is black men don't matter when it comes to elections. See, black women, we favor you over those black men. Don't you feel special? Why, we're not even talking about black men. We're talking about you. Black men are irrelevant. Don't you feel special? Don't you feel like you're on the inside track? Don't you feel like you're an honorary member of the oppressor class? Don't you feel like you're on the inside, don't you? Because we're talking to you. We're not even talking to black men. We left them out of the conversation. Doesn't that make you feel exceptional? Don't you feel special? That's the goal here. And facing that reality, that you better believe the white media is going to do everything that they can to stay away from that. They're going to be doing everything they can to say, well, black women just need to turn out. Tangibles. Punish the police. That's just the beginning of our laundry list, but you can start there. You can start with our reparations, and you can start with giving these police the hardest time there is. They should be getting nothing but life sentences and capital punishment. That's all I want to see. I want to see nothing but life sentences and capital punishment. I want the federal government cracking down on any city, any police department who refuses to impose it. Joe Biden had no problem writing $13 billion into Biden's law in order to bribe the states into changing their laws to make them as draconian and harsh as he wanted them to be. Well, great. Now they can appropriate $25 billion so that the states will be incentivized to pass laws that make it where if you get fired or if you quit the police department because you know you're about to get fired, you can't get hired in any other state. You'll be done in law enforcement, period. And that if you assault someone, especially if you assault a black person, that's 25 off top. Oh, but all I did was slap him across the head. Great, you'll spend the next 25 years thinking about that. You kill a black person, that's automatic life. Automatic, off top, automatic. Got to give you life because you killed a black person. And if we find that you've got any Facebook posts or you have any tattoos or you got a Confederate flag shirt under your uniform like Ray Tensing did in Cincinnati when he murdered that brother, if we find out any of that, we find out you got any postings, we're going to get your IP address and go through all your text messages and all your Facebook accounts and your Twitter accounts, even the phony baloney, your sock puppet accounts. We're going to go through all of them. The ones that you think when you want to post anonymously. So you can say what you really think. Okay, we're going to go through all that. We find any anti-black sentiment there, that's automatic hate crime, death penalty. Now, Joe Biden, that's the kind of thing that he needs to be pushing for. But you're not going to be hearing anyone saying, we need the inverse of Biden's law, the same way that he bribed the states so that they would illegally go after black people. We need to make sure that the states are properly financially bootstrapped and incentivized to go after police violence. $25 billion ought to let the states know the only way you get that money is you got to change your laws. Make them just like Ohio. Ohio has got those laws now that say that if you get fired because of misconduct, or if you quit because you're about to be fired, you can't get hired by any other agency in the state. These laws need to be passed nationwide, all 50 states. The federal government should be pushing for it. At the very least, if black women are the Democratic Party, shouldn't these black women in political office be pushing for it? But they're not. Laird understands what this is really about. This is not even really about getting Donald Trump out of the White House. What this is about is breaking the black voter blockade, getting black women to abandon the black voter blockade. That's what this is about. Whether or not Donald Trump wins office or loses it is not as important as whether or not they can break the solidarity that black men and black women, especially young black men and women, have on the issue of getting ours. When it comes to our empowerment, if they can just get black women to say, oh, forget about all of that. I need to see somebody up there who claims to be a black woman. That's the only thing that matters. This is about psychological masturbation, which means you're going to go to an early grave. You see, black women turned out in 2016 and Hillary lost. But they're more furious about this because they see what happened afterwards. They realize this isn't a fluke. It's not a one-off. This could be the new normal if they don't find a way to break that black solidarity now. So Laird's snake oil salesman routine that black women lead the black electorate around by the nose, that simply isn't true. Because if she was telling the truth, if one black woman could get 10 other black people to turn out to vote, then that means all you would need is just to get 10% of black women, or rather I should say, if you're going to talk about, because they didn't mention black men, by the way. So what that tells me is black men are not being counted. When she says that mobilize 10 other black people to vote, she's not talking about black men, obviously. She says they are aunties, they are mothers, grandmothers. She doesn't mention black men, so we're going to leave black men out of her political math. So to hear her tell it, all you need is to get 10% of black women to vote, and they'll get the other 90% to show up to vote. Because one black woman can move 10 other black people, right? So just get 10% of black women to vote, and you'll get the other 90% by default because black women do not vote alone, right? Right? That's what she said. Black women don't just vote by themselves. Great. So 10% of black women, if you can mobilize that, they'll get the other 90%, right? Oh, but let's go ahead and go into the magical land of make-believe, and let's say that you get black women and black men as a group. Though what that means is if you can get, say, 20 to 25% of black women to turn out to vote, why, they'll move 100% of the black vote. Well, did that happen in 2016? Did it happen in 2018? You had a lot of black women who showed up in North Carolina, but North Carolina still ain't no cinch for the Democrats. What does that tell you? See, this is propaganda. In what world does Laird's math make sense? But of course, she doesn't have to make sense. She's not here to actually make any sense. This is not about political reality. What this is a puff piece. It's a propaganda piece. Selling the soap for the left arm of white supremacy. This is about testing to see if they can schmooze black women back onto the treadmill. So that's the reason why she doesn't have to be factual about it. Nobody's going to fact check her on it. Nobody's going to question and say, wait a minute, what you just said that one black woman can mobilize 10 other people to vote, that doesn't even make any sense. Do you have any figures on that? Anything that proves that? What are you talking about? Do you know how absurd that is? But that's the point. She knows she doesn't have to make sense. All she has to do is just basically say the most grandiose things that she can in the hopes that black women will listen to this and go, oh, finally, you're telling me how important I am, and you're telling me that I have all this power, and you're telling me that you really respect me. Well, did they use the word respect? Did they say that you have power? They didn't say that. They just talked about how black women can be useful to this old racist white man who wants to be president. That's all they said. Because at no point does this Laird woman talk about black women demanding tangibles. She never says what it is that black women want. Isn't that interesting? She's talking about how important black women are, but she doesn't say what it is that black women require in order to get their vote, because the entire point of the article is that there's a generational schism. We'll go ahead and just limit it to black women, who obviously that's the entire point of this NPR's little propaganda piece. But at no point do they talk about, well, what is it that these black women want? What is it that the Democrats could do that would galvanize these black female voters? They don't talk about what it is that black women actually say that they want. Instead, it's a matter of, well, the VP pick, that'll be enough to do it, right? And this Laird woman says, yep, it sure would. You see, as Dr. King said, and I posted this on my Twitter feed, we've gotten past the point where these white folks are going to be able to offer us something other than money in order to deal with these issues. See, it didn't cost the white supremacists anything to integrate a lunch counter or a movie theater. In fact, they made money off of that because now you got more black folks coming to patronize these white supremacist racist businesses. But as Dr. King said in his The Three Evils speech, now we've arrived at the point where there are demands being made that you cannot settle for free. But it's going to require, as he put it, billions, and now the price tag is trillions, in economic redistribution. That's where we are now. And that's what this entire cynical exercise in attempting to pander to black women is meant to derail. It's meant to stop that process. If they can break the black voter blockade, get it to fracture, then white power lives to oppress us another day. At this point, they can't think strategically anymore, so it's a matter of thinking tactically. One tactic after another. Well, what if it's the same old tactic? Well, maybe if we keep doing the same thing, something else will happen. We stand at a pivotal point. Things can go either way. We can fall towards justice, or we can fall back into our old failed habits. Lean forward into black empowerment, or fall back into the continued oppression. But as I've always taught you, when it comes to oppression, there is always a strong element of complicity that goes along with it. No system of oppression can last for very long unless you can turn the oppressed into willing collaborators in their own oppression. And that's what you see here with this Laird woman. Phony, baloney, empty praise, but no talk about real tangibles, no talk about what black women are going to get. See, she talks about what Kamala Harris is going to get and tells you that that should satisfy you. You should be glad just to see her up there. Why? Don't you feel like you're her? That representation garbage is daydreaming. Escapist fantasy. That's dangerous enough. If you look at these Negro nerds, that's dangerous enough to pull that stunt when you look at them. When you start daydreaming that you are, Black Spider-Man or something, you start daydreaming that mess and you start denying the racial reality of the world that you live in. And it becomes catastrophic when you apply that same kind of fantasy, wish fulfillment, daydreaming to electoral politics, which is exactly what they're telling you to do. That's what's going on here. The white media is going to be pushing a lot more stories like this as the campaign goes on. You're going to be seeing the white media doing this more and more and saying, well, it's entirely possible that Jim Crow Joe Biden may not make it through his first term. It's at his age, it's possible. You can't doubt the actuarial tables. This is just the political reality, and Kamala Harris could find herself being president without even having to get elected. Oh, it would be sudden. She's prepared for this. And they're never going to question whether or not she's prepared for it. Instead, it's going to be just a fait accompli. But of course she is. Yeah, because she already proved that the biggest problem white supremacy faces is black empowerment. How to control the 45 to 50 plus million former slaves. How do you control them? That's what the prison industrial complex is for. That she and Joe Biden have instituted and pushed and augmented and fought for their entire lives. There's no question about whether or not Kamala Harris is right for the job of president should it be thrust upon her, because she's already proven that she is dedicated to destroying and fighting the biggest threat that white supremacy has, which is black empowerment. The former slaves, she's proven to them, hey, if nothing else, you better believe I'm going to keep those niggers in line. And they're like, well, in that case, then there's no question that you do a good job as president. That's why they're not going to be bringing that up. But you better believe you will be hearing them having stories on because they want black women to look and say, oh, she could be president. I identify with her. Why? She's my avatar. Kamala Harris is my avatar. That's not really me up there. That's somebody who doesn't like me, can't stand me, and has locked up people who look like me and does everything she can to distance herself from being called black. But I'm going to tell myself that she's me. And if Joe Biden kicks the bucket or he otherwise is deemed as unfit to serve, why, she becomes president and whoopee. What kind of delusion is this? Because while they're talking, they're going to give some empty talk about how fit Kamala Harris would be to be president. But what they won't talk about is what it is that black people or even black women are going to get from her or Joe Biden. You will not be hearing about reparations. You won't be hearing about punish the police. That will not be any of the planks of their political platform. Instead, you better believe it's going to be the Lift Act Redux. Whoa, I've been talking about lifting all boats. Look at the economic condition the country's in. 4 million plus people out of work and on the unemployment rolls, and we got to fix the situation and lift all boats. We have to lift all boats and bring all Americans together. That's what you're going to be hearing. Expect to see Kamala Harris doing most of the talking, by the way, because Joe Biden, this senile old fool, it's pretty obvious he's going through the outer stages, quickly moving to the main stages of dementia and senility. This clown can barely string together a coherent sentence. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to have the freaking popcorn on standby when the debates come up. I mean, talk about foot and mouth disease on steroids. But Kamala Harris, they're going to be sending her out to be selling the soap. And the soap is going to smell like crap because it's going to be the same old garbage that we've been hearing. I'm not doing anything that's only going to benefit black people. Meanwhile, she's helping make sure Native Americans get tangibles and illegal aliens get tangibles and that Asians get tangibles and LGBT get tangibles. But for black people, well, I'm not going to do anything that only benefits you. I can do stuff specifically for everybody else, but not for you, though. And that's part of how she reassures her real constituency, which happens to be white established power, that if nothing else, she's a solid bet. She ain't going to break bad on you. Even if you don't choose her, don't worry, she ain't going to bite the hand that feeds her. So I need black people and black women in particular, since you're the ones who they're aiming this propaganda at, you better understand what's happening here. The white media is treating you like a child. And they're hoping that they can get you all excited. And once they got you excited and interested in cheerleading for nothing, then they're hoping you're going to be carried away with your emotions and you're going to be all off in your feelings and you're not going to be thinking anymore. You're going to forget all about the fact that Kamala Harris has been fighting a 30-year war against black people. You're going to forget all about how she ignored the murder of Matrice Richardson. How she sent so many black mothers, when you're talking about truancy in the black community, because black households are overwhelmingly headed by single mothers. When you talk about locking up black parents for truancy, what you're talking about is locking up black women, and she did. She's hoping you'll forget all about that. And wouldn't it be just the ultimate triumph for white supremacy if you take Kamala Harris, this Asian who claims to be black, who's been persecuting black people and black women in specific under law for the last 30 years, if you take this person who's been waging a one-woman jihad against black people and get those same black women who she persecuted and has been harming and oppressing for so long, get black women to vote for her, man, that would be just the biggest coup ever for white supremacy, especially in the post-Obama era, where you got black people saying, oh, we ain't going to fall for that trick anymore. We're not going for that garbage. And then to get them to go for it anyway, white supremacy would look and go, we got these niggers under control for the next 100 years. White supremacy will be safe for the next 100 years. Look what these dumb bastards just did. Why, Kamala Harris, she is tailor-made for the intersectionalist, swirler, hood rat, zaddy worshipping set. She's even got a white husband. So you better believe there's going to be a whole lot of these clowns saying, oh, she got a white husband. See, this is a come up for black women, black girls rock, etc. That's what this garbage is about. And if you happen to be part of the low rent, low political IQ group of black voters, then you might think that this means something. But for those of us who have an IQ higher than our shoe size, we see through the scam. You see, when you're living the B1 life, when you're about black empowerment, you don't live in your imagination. You don't live in a land of make-believe. You're not looking for representation. You're looking for aggregation of power. You don't daydream about, oh, there's some biracial person up there who claims that her father is black, sort of, and that could be me up there. I'm going to try to live vicariously through them, and I'm going to daydream that that's me up there. I'm going to just have a fantasy that I am Barack Obama, or that I am Kamala Harris, I'm going to try to live vicariously through them. That's what children do. That's what idiots and losers and failures do. That's what traitors and clowns do. That's what the unloved and the unworthy do. They try to live out a fantasy through somebody who doesn't know them, doesn't care about them, and wouldn't lift a finger to help them. Just like Oprah Winfrey. You see Kamala Harris being cheered and applauded and praised by the white media and by the white leftists, and you think, oh, well, I can just tell myself that that's me because I would kiss their behinds just like Oprah and Kamala Harris do, so that would be me up there. Oh, I'm just going to bask in the glow of the praise, the phony praise, this little pathetic show that the white media's put on called, here's a Negro that we can appreciate. I'm going to imagine that that's me on that screen. All of this meant to lead black people, starting with black women, away from tangibles. Break the black voter blockade. That's what this operation is all about. And they're going to be carpet bombing black women with this propaganda day and night. You see, they know that on a long enough timeline that they cannot stop the rise of black empowerment, but what they're hoping for is that they can stall it. That's what this cynical exercise is. It's a complete and thorough insult to have Joe Biden on the ticket. They didn't need Biden on the ticket. It's just a matter of we need to send a message loud and clear that you niggers, you're going to know your place. And even if white supremacy falls, our last act is going to be to give you niggers the middle finger and let you know that we can't stand you. And even if it brings the country to absolute ruin, we would much rather have a white supremacist who has been locking you guys up. If that's the last thing we do, great. Our last act of white supremacy is going to be to let you know that we'd love to have all you niggers in prison, if not dead. That's what this is about. Take two career enemies of the black community and have them on the ticket running together. Hell, at this point, the only thing that's missing is for Donald Trump to announce that Mike Pence is going to resign and David Duke will be his running mate for re-election. That's the only damn thing missing. So we have got to be on our square, and we have to make it clear that we are not going to be moved. We have to make it clear we're not falling for no okie doke. We got to make that absolutely clear. Because you see, recently, you had that election for DA's race in Fulton County, Georgia. That's where Atlanta's at, Fulton County. Paul Howard, the DA there, he had put those charges on that race soldier who murdered Rashard Brooks. And the white supremacists, they were very angry about that because they understood that this set a bad precedent. He was upping the ante. They can't have any DAs deciding, hey, you kill a black person, we ain't going to be doing any of this. Well, maybe 5 years. We're going to throw some hard time at you. Like, well, if you break bad on us and do that, then that's going to make other DAs, that's going to make it where black people in other cities think that they should be demanding the same. We don't want any DAs thinking that they should be throwing hard time at white supremacists who murder black people. After all, we need to make it understood that once you have a badge, well, you become untouchable as long as you're white. If you're a white man with a badge, then that makes you untouchable. And if they do decide to throw something at you, it doesn't matter. 5 years max, which means you're out in a few. And they don't want to see any movement on that, which is what Paul Howard did represents. So they took some clown who used to work for him, shades of Kamala Harris, one of Howard's former assistant district attorneys, a black woman in this case, Fani Willis. She decides that the white powers that be prop her up. We got to get you to get him out of there. Now, we've been telling you for the longest time that you do not vote unless the person is showing up and they're actually offering you something. Offering you a white supremacist head on a platter, that's something, family. This guy kills a black person, and I mean, for God's sake, you understand that when that DA Steele up there in Pennsylvania called himself running on a platform of, I'm going to get Bill Cosby, every black person recognized how important that was. Paul Howard runs on a platform of, I'm going to put this white supremacist in jail for killing this black person. And you got the black folks in Atlanta who apparently, as far as they were concerned, they weren't sure they could get behind that. Now, here's the thing to remember, and I posted this on my Twitter feed. Fulton County has a total population of around 1 million people in Fulton County. Half of them are black, about 500,000. Now, for this DA's race, you didn't have 500,000 people turn out. I'm talking about total, black, white, whatever else there is. You didn't have 500,000 people, total voters who turned out. You didn't have 200,000 who turned out to vote. You didn't even have 100,000. Hell, you had 60,000. That's only a little over 50,000 people total. Black, white, yellow, brown, and everything else. Only 60,000 people turned out to vote on Tuesday in Fulton County for DA. That's it. So you see, the white supremacists weren't able to galvanize all those white voters. They weren't able to galvanize them. It should have been easy for this political race to be won by Paul Howard. Should have been easy, but it wasn't. Now, I understand that there are some of you who have said, and many of you are just cutting and pasting what the white media tells you, well, he lost some black support because blah, 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 blah. This is called political immaturity, being politically unsophisticated, not understanding what's really going on. This election wasn't about Paul Howard. Get it through your thick skull. But 60,000 people tops turned out to vote. And Paul Howard, all he got was what? I think he got like 16,000 or something like that. He got a very, very small number of voters. That's it. He couldn't. In fact, it was a little under 16,000, I think. So was there like some number of black folks who went for this Willis character? Probably. But the point that I'm making is the white supremacists with badges, this was an important election to them. They understood the precedent that this would set. And that being the case, it's always worth it to turn out to thwart the white supremacists with badges, to make sure that these thugs with badges get put on notice. Yes, the will of the people is arrayed against you. That's always a reason to turn out. Punishing the white supremacists, that's always a reason to turn out. But, of course, we have to also be honest with the situation in Atlanta. You see, Jason put up a billboard when he made his gentrified documentary. He put up a billboard in Atlanta saying that black people are being run out of Atlanta. And you had people who went on YouTube and Facebook and such claiming that they're from Atlanta, and I believe it, and saying, oh, that ain't happening. I don't know what you're talking about. See, Atlanta was overrun decades ago by intersectionalists, LGBTs, hood rats, zaddy worshippers, and Becky chasers. Bed wenches and bed bucks alike. And you know what all of those groups have in common in the black? If you're dealing with intersectionalists and swirlers and hood rats and dusty dudes and Becky chasers and zaddy worshipers and LGBTs, do you know what all of them have in common? That class of Negro craves being abused by the dominant society. They all have that in common. You see, you had that Cooper fellow up there, Christian Cooper in New York, when that Amy Cooper woman called the police on him trying to get him killed. I'm sure it didn't skip your notice. He happens to be LGBT himself. And what's the first thing came out of his mouth? I think she's been through enough. I just want this to go away. You want to know why? Because he defines himself as being LGBT and not even black. As far as he's concerned, his skin color is incidental. Well, it's incidental to him, but it is every bit important to the society, especially to the Amy Coopers. They didn't think it was incidental. It was the only thing that they cared about. But because Christian Cooper cares about what he does in the bedroom more than whether or not he lives to see tomorrow, only thing on his mind is all the attention he's getting and how this will improve his chances of picking up a white man at the local LGBT bar. That's the only thing that Christian Cooper was thinking about. And he's not alone. Come on, you got a lot of these black folks, even the ones who have been killed. You look and you see that a lot of these guys, many of them are suspected Becky chasers. And that being the case, well, even if you got some white supremacist, if it's a female white supremacist, they'll be sitting here making excuses for him. Oh, some white woman tries to stop you from getting into your own condominium, tries to block you at the door. Well, maybe you can get a date from her later if you let her know, no hard feelings. Can I get some easy drawers? There's a lot of folks like that, and unfortunately Atlanta is a hub city for that kind of degenerate mentality. That kind of dirt bag mentality. Atlanta is a hub for it. Jason Black been telling you for the longest time, Atlanta fell a long time ago. So at this point, they're just simply giving a formal declaration to commit suicide. And you better believe the race soldiers are going to be greatly emboldened after this. Fannie Willis, she took campaign donations for the lawyer for that cop who murdered Rayshard Brooks. Did you know that? The cop who murdered Rayshard Brooks, his lawyer gave money to Fannie Willis, and this after the murder took place. This isn't a matter of she took money from the cop's lawyer before the murder took place. She took the money from the guy after the murder. Now, how is that not an ethics violation? This is a case that she is going to have the ability to weigh in on. She can have it dismissed, or she can otherwise throw the case. How can this not be seen as buying influence? How is this not a bribe? The fact that she even took money from the police in general, that should be illegal. And taking money from the lawyer of somebody who has a vested interest in a case that you are overseeing, or supposed to be handling, how in God's name is that not a crime? Well, under white supremacy. There are no laws. There is only, I'm white and I say so. Oh, what she did is not an ethics violation? No, it isn't. We're white and we say so. But Atlanta, Jason told you years and years and years ago, Atlanta's a lost cause. Write them off. These guys gave up. Forget about gave up. These guys were never in the fight. You can talk about Dr. King all you want, but Dr. King was alone out there. Let's be straight about that. That's the reason why after he was murdered, you didn't have 50 or 60 Dr. Kings who came out of Atlanta. Instead, you had a whole bunch of buck dancers and butt kissers and boot licks and bootlace scumbags. That's all that came out of Atlanta. You had the dregs of Black America who came out. You have the lowest common denominator. So that tells you everything you need to know about Atlanta. And I said it. So Atlanta has decided to effectively give the white supremacists the green light. They've decided to effectively commit suicide. Apparently survival is not something they're thinking about after all, when all you can think about is Freaknik. And all you're really concerned about is getting turned up. You got a whole city seemingly of worthless Negroes. Let's just call it like it is. You got 500,000 black folks, and let's go ahead and be absurdly optimistic and say that absolutely no black people voted for Fannie Willis. Only about a little under 16,000 could be bothered to turn out for an election to send a critical message to the white supremacists murdering black people in the streets. Out of 500,000, only a little under 16,000 could be bothered to get off their couch. Now, what does that tell you? 16,000 out of 500,000? That's about 3%. So you're telling me that 3%, only 3 out of every 100, could actually be bothered to actually do something in the face of white supremacists murdering you in the parking lot of a goddamn fast food joint. That lets you know everything you need to know about Atlanta. And unfortunately, Atlanta's not alone. Now, by the way, I know that there's this chronic group of black folks who, whenever you point out that how bad the situation is, you're just saying it like it is. We didn't get in the situation that we're in right now where the white supremacists are killing us with impunity because we've been fighting the white supremacists. We've been doing it because black folks have been sitting on their hands. And in many cases like Atlanta and Baltimore and a few other spots, black folks just gave up altogether. That's how we got in the situation. I'm simply being stark about the reality of where we are right now. That's not to say that we're not making moves and that we're not making progress, but there's some black folks who love to do oh man, we ain't never gonna get together. Those people, you can miss me with that. And you're likely to get blocked if you try posting that kind of defeatist nonsense in my comment section. What this is about is just making it clear, this is the enormity of the job that we have in front of us. And when I tell you that not everyone who is black is going to be part of black empowerment and that a lot of these folks don't need to be part of it and that the herd needs to be thinned, all you need look is at the completely pathetic response of Atlanta in the face of the white supremacists telling you we're terrified that this Howard guy is going to get reelected. We need to send a message. We're scared of this. We're scared of the president that it sets. Instead of black people acting in their own interest, what do? They sat at home. And you want to know why it is that they sat at home? Because the problem happens to be twofold. One, Atlanta committed suicide a long time ago. The black folks in Atlanta, as far as they're concerned, they have somehow created this mystique for themselves that there's some sort of success story, when the truth of the matter is you had that first black mayor of Atlanta, I believe his name was Maynard Jackson. And he was the one who did a lot to help make sure that city contracts and jobs were shifted to black people's hands. And that's how you make sure that the tax revenue stays in the hands of the black people of the city. You got a nice closed economic loop. You're refunneling that economic vitality directly into the black community. And there were some black folks who were able to capitalize on that, or at least the situation was nowhere near as bad as it's been in most other black cities. You had one black mayor who made a big difference. And now you've had successive generations who've squandered that opportunity. They've told themselves that their crap doesn't stink, that there's some sort of black Mecca. Well, in your black Mecca, the white supremacists kill you with impunity. And you're letting them. T.I. said that we got Wakanda here in Atlanta. This is our Wakanda. Well, he's right about one thing. Because in Wakanda, you had that white boy, the Winter Soldier. He murdered the king of Wakanda, and the Wakandans didn't punish him. Instead, they said, let him live among us. We'll even give him a nice little house, and if he wants to get down with some of the local women, we'll let him do that too. That's what happened in Wakanda. White guy kills a black man, and he gets to do it with impunity, and he gets to live there in Wakanda, and they don't do nothing about it. So yeah, I guess T.I. was right. I guess Atlanta really is Wakanda. Hey, say, didn't in the movies, the bad guys overrun Wakanda? Like in one of those, like Infinity War or something like that. Didn't the bad guys overrun Wakanda? Well, T.I., I guess you knew what you were talking about. You see, unfortunately, I'm not up on all that nerd geek stuff. I don't obsess about comic book movies and what sci-fi show is on. So that being the case, you'll have to forgive me if I'm behind the curve on pop culture and whatever the escapist fantasy is going on right now. I'm too busy looking at the real world and making sure that as many of my people as possible are still here to breathe tomorrow. That's where my priority is, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm not up on geek culture or pop culture. You'll have to forgive me. But it was asinine for T.I. to say something like that. This is our Wakanda. Not even realizing how absurd what he was saying really was, and nobody checking him on it. You want to know why? Because it's about psychological masturbation. This is where we come full circle to the white media attempting to try to psychologically masturbate black women. You see what's going on here? Giving empty praise and insincere flattery in the hopes that black people will be simple-minded and go for it. Well, in Atlanta, they succeeded. But we are going to need for black folks to make it very clear, the population in general, all of us, we ain't Atlanta. We need to make that very clear. See, Atlanta decided, and there is no virtue in sitting out when it comes time to send the white supremacists a message. When it comes time to let the white supremacists know that we are united and focused against you, there is no virtue in trying to pretend like, oh man, well, I didn't want to turns out to vote. Please, black people in too many cases, they want to try to claim that their non-involvement and their cowardice or their lack of character is somehow some sort of virtue. You're too cowardly to fight the white supremacists. Just go ahead and hide behind some Bible verses and say, I was turning the other cheek. What would Jesus do? You're too busy watching Love and Hip Hop or the Real Housewives of Who Gives a Damn, and you're too busy doing that, so you can't really be bothered to take on the white supremacists when it comes time to make sure that they understand that a new day has come and we're going to make sure the law is incentivized to go after you. Well, just go ahead and say that, well, I just wasn't feeling it. This is how you give a green light to the aggressors. But there also is another reality that Jason Black already touched on that needs to be repeated as well. The lesson that needs to be learned for Paul Howard, and this is something that black politicians, and I'm not so naive as to believe that these guys don't follow what the black media says, because a lot of them, even if they hate us, the truth of the matter is they can't beat us, and they understand that we got the momentum behind us. So for any of you black politicians out there who might have aspirations of presenting yourselves as being the people's choice, you better understand something. You cannot wait until the last possible minute to finally come to the black media or to obliquely do so. If you are too busy that you cannot reach out to us, that you can't fool with us, that you're basically going to wait until the last moment because, you really don't want to be associated with all that black empowerment talk. Or perhaps because you're playing the game and you're thinking to yourself that you're going to climb the ladder and, well, it'd be great to get that grassroots support, but I wouldn't want to send the wrong message to my white liberal pals. And well, so I can't do that. That's okay. Paul Howard found out what happens when you decide that you're going to keep the black grassroots at arm's length. You see, whether you like Donald Trump or not, and there's plenty not to like about him, you notice how Donald Trump didn't have a problem going on Alex Jones' little sideshow. Donald Trump doesn't have a problem, either him or his spokespeople, reaching out to the right-wing podcasts and such. They don't have a problem with that. He understands his grassroots support. He understands who his base is. And he understands how important it is that he connect with them so that they understand, yeah, I'm not ignoring you. And that's the reason why, and I posted this on my Twitter feed today, Newsweek reported that in a poll taken by The Hill and some group called Harris X, 50% of white Americans said that they would vote for Donald Trump if the election were held today. 50% of the white vote, that means roughly something on the order of about 36%. 36% of the electorate already in Donald Trump's pocket. And since Joe Biden's hardly going to be setting the world on fire, all Donald Trump's thinking about is, how do I make sure that I get myself another 10 or so percent? He got the presidency without having to get a plurality of the vote. He needs to stay as close to that 50% as possible. He ain't got to cross the 50% barrier, but he's got to do at least 45%. So that's the reason why you got Donald Trump talking to suburban Reed white households about, I'm going to make sure that you guys stay nigger free. He understands who his base is, and he has no problem reaching out to them. So these black politicians out there, you guys better start understanding that you can go ahead and play this game of, well, I got to keep the black media and the black grassroots at arm's length. I can't really be seen talking to you guys. Okay, you can go ahead and do that. And you can also decide that, well, I'm going to reach out I'm going to at least put my name out there the last possible minute and try to get some. No, that ain't going to work. Successful campaigns require years in order to make sure that you build momentum. You don't do it at the last possible moment. Even if you had the best of intentions, even if you decided, well, you know what, I'm going to start reaching out to these guys heavy and I'm going to start banging the drum. I'm going to start talking to them, interfacing with them and letting them know we see you, we hear you, and we're with you. You don't do that at the last minute. You don't wait for that. So that's the lesson that gets taken away from this. Black politicians, please do not think that just because the white supremacists happen to be against you, that that's all you need. It is not enough. That's not sufficient. You hold the black grassroots at arm's length, you can't then turn around and go, gee, I wonder where my support was. Well, they were probably holding you at arm's length. You must balance the taken with the given. Now, I don't expect this is a message that a lot of these black politicians are going to pick up, but as the white supremacists begin to solidify their position, and a lot of these black politicians who thought that they weren't in the crosshairs suddenly find themselves there because they're caught on the horns of a dilemma. You have an invigorated and mobilized black polity that has made it very clear what their demands are. And you got the white supremacists who are determined that they're going to go down fighting. Now, the black politicians have to decide if they're going to declare which side that they're on. And you make that declaration through your actions. Lip service isn't enough. We're not going to have you do a gesture and then our imaginations take over. You got to start talking to the black grassroots, and that means directly. Doesn't mean that it goes through some third party or we can just take your word for it that you're with us. No, either you stand with us, you come talk to us, you deal with us like you do any other constituency. You want our support, you got to talk to us like you do everybody else. Talk to us in person. Make it clear, we hear what you're saying, we're with this agenda, we want you to be with us. That's what you do. You do that and you'll find that a lot of those problems you've been having with turnout, they're going to become a lot less problems for you. Because the truth of the matter is, you've been depending on the old standby, the old faithful, and they ain't been so faithful, have they? So family, this week has been quite illuminating across the board. Illuminating indeed. We got the white supremacists making it clear what their electoral strategy is for the presidency. And we've also had a number of black folks making it very clear that who's going to be choosing survival and who's going to be choosing suicide. And it's going to be a conscious choice. No one's going to be fooling you. It's going to be stark, open, honest, and in your face. Everyone's going to have to declare where they stand. Black politicians must declare. Black voters must declare. So-called allies, self-described allies, must declare. Nobody's going to be skating by on inference anymore. Or it was implied. Or if I just hint at it. No, you're just going to have to come out and say it. Repeatedly. This is going to be a transformative year, and we have to ensure that black empowerment is at the forefront of the discussion, and that falls on us to do. Atlanta failed, but truth be told, they failed a long time ago. The whole Paul Howard situation, that was a long shot from the jump because you're in Atlanta. Talk about a place where dysfunction reigns. Jason said write them off a long time ago, and now you see the reason why. Atlanta's top priority is not survival or empowerment. Their top priority is interracial sexual access. That's what Atlanta's about. They pride themselves as being nothing more than a nonstop party, and, well, we'll leave it for the white supremacists to give them the notice that the party's over. These clowns are going to keep partying right up until the white supremacists snuff them out, and that's fine. The herd needs to be thinned, and at this point, if you're too cowardly, timid, or stupid to put your chips on black empowerment, well, I ain't got nothing for you. This is the age of political reality. Nobody's putting on a cape to save anyone. Everybody is going to have to show that they've got the steel and they've got the mind and the muscle to take care of their own interests. And what happens is when enough black folks have that mentality, you're going to very quickly find we get things done. Stop trying to get somebody to get you to be part of a group. Where do I sign up? I need some other folks. No, all we need is for black people to understand you are the resistance. That's what puts a spine into other black people. Hell, even that Laird character, as ridiculous as her exaggeration was, the basic principle that she spoke to does have some merit and does have some basis in reality. If one black person votes, they'll be talking to other black folks and saying, hey, this is something we should be doing. But the opposite is also true. You got some black folks who say, you know what, we can sit this one out. Apathy very quickly takes over and they say, you know what, that sounds reasonable to us. But the problem is we don't want to be sitting out on elections where there's actually something regarding our interests at stake. When our interests are at stake, that's not we have to recognize the difference. Because there's a lot of black folks, they like the message of if they're not coming to you with tangibles or punishment of the police, just sit out the election. They like the sound of that because what you're saying is it's okay for them to do nothing. No, it's okay for you to sit out the election when your interests are not on the ballot. But when tangibles or punishing the police are on the ballot, then it's not okay for you to sit that one out. When you got the white supremacists who are angry and furious about someone who they see on the ballot, when you got somebody who is threatening the white supremacists, it's not okay for you to sit that one out. But don't worry, there's going to be other chances. As black empowerment stays on the march, there will be other chances indeed of a necessity. We're going to make sure that there are, because we're not going to stop what we're doing. There will be other elections to have the white supremacists put on notice. But you understand, a lot of these cities where these Negroes have congregated at, they didn't congregate to build black empowerment. They congregated to goof off and party their lives away, and they will. Go ahead and keep partying and goofing off. Go ahead and let these rhetoricians and these shills and these bootlicks and mouthpieces tell you that you should vote for individuals who lock you up. And then they tell you that it's okay for you to sit out an election where you got a chance to put the white supremacists in jail. Go ahead and keep doing that and telling yourselves that somehow you're doing something smart. Go ahead and keep doing that mess. One of the things that we taught Kamala Harris was hiding your head in the sand does not make the reality of black empowerment go away. While we advocate this message, while we push this message, ultimately, we are not trying to force it on anyone. We're not trying to persuade anyone. We're telling the truth, and the truth will speak for itself.